Yeah. So today we will discuss about a very simple mathematical concept called as Hawk transform. Okay. We will see how to use this Hawk transform with a simple example, and then no, we'll go back to our previous example where we were supposed to count the number of lines in a given image. So before trying to do that example, I had already given you the exercise, and I wanted you to learn the concept of Hawk transform. So most of you would have done it, most of you would have understood it. But however, very quickly, I'll just try to tell you what is Hawk transform is all about. So here, the purpose of Hawk transform is very simple. Suppose you have an image, and in that image you have multiple objects like a rectangle, a circle, or it could be a traffic light signal, or it could be a triangle. Okay, so to identify these kind of objects in a given image, we can use the help of Hawk transform. So the purpose of Hawk transform is it will identify the locations of either a rectangle, circle, or whatever the objects are. Particularly, object should be of predefined shapes, and that objects could be identified using the concept of Hawk transform. Okay, so first let us see how to identify a straight line in a given image. Okay, so we all know the expression for a straight line is y is equal to mx plus c, and we know that y is the y coordinate, which is a dependent variable, and x is the independent variable, which is x coordinate, and c is the y intercept, and m is the slope of the straight line. Okay. Yeah. So let us see how a line can be expressed mathematically. So we have assume that we have a xy coordinate system, and in that we have a blue line that is trying to cut through the x-axis as well as the y-axis. So we can represent this line as y is equal to mx plus n, where m represents the slope. Okay, suppose you have a slope, so we take the slope of the line, and that will be your m, and n represents the y-intercept. Okay. So if at all you have a point on this straight line, other than that, it is at x1 comma y1 somewhere at this point, or you may also have a point, okay, in multiple locations. These points can be denoted as y1 is equal to m into x1 plus n. So x1 is the x-intercept, x point, and m is the slope, n is the y-intercept. Similarly, if I have another point on the straight line, that can also be expressed as this. Since in both the points, what is happening is m and the m and m are remaining same, n and m are remaining same. So all of these points represent a straight line. So if you try to understand, okay, I think yeah. Students, is it audible to you? And is the slide visible? Anyone, no, any one of you can just tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's visible.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine then we'll go ahead with this. Yeah. So if you try to understand the concept here, this slide will help us in very clearly understanding what is the meaning of Hawk transform. Let us take for example this straight line. This straight line will have multiple points across all the blue line. Each of these points is corresponds to correspond x-axis and a y-axis. So assume that you have a point somewhere here. Okay, this point somewhere here is now corresponding to x-axis as well as y-axis. I think students keep joining late. Yeah. So now for every point we have the relationship between x1 and y1. So this is the basic relationship. Suppose you have another point on the same straight line that will also be expressed as another expression y2 is equal to mx2 plus m. And then like that, all the points that are available on the straight line could be expressed as this. Yn is equal to mxn plus n. Suppose you so assume that this straight line, whatever we have, it has a starting point at this location. So we have a starting point. This is a starting point, and this is an ending point. Let us take a look. Now, if you take for the example, so this corresponding point, assume that this is your x1 point. Now, if at all I take the point x1 and if I substitute x1 here and I know the slope of this straight line and I know y-intercept that is n, so you will get what is the value of y-intercept, okay, corresponding to this. Suppose I take a point here on x and then I substitute that in this equation and I try to tell what is mn. Now what happens? Because there is no any y, so the y will become y component will become almost 0. So you know that the straight line is able to extend only from this point to this point. So that is what is defined by your x limits. And correspondingly, if x is present, then y will also be present. If x is not there, so even if you consider this, if x is not there, y will be almost equal to 0 because your straight line doesn't exist. Now, if you take this simple mathematical equation, this will help us in identifying what is the meaning of Hogg transform is all about. Okay, let us see what is this Hogg transform is in detail. Okay. So here we are talking about a concept called parameter space. So here what we do is here x and y is what is your independent variable and dependent variable. M and n are constants. Okay. So because m and n are constants, you are able to get one single straight line. Suppose you keep changing m and n. Okay. So you keep changing m and n, you will be able to get multiple straight lines. What happens is, okay, in the parameter space, we call it, the left hand side we call it as image space, and the right hand side we call it as a parameter space. Here, what we do in a parameter space is, okay, we'll take the x and y axis are replaced by the n and m. So we have the intercept axis and the slope axis. So with regarding to intercept axis and slope axis, we will now represent the points available in this straight line. Okay. So we call this as parameter space and we call this as image space. Okay. So this is the only difference that we try to see here in this slide, wherein there is an image space, then there's a parameter space. In the image space, your x and y axis are known. That is, your x axis is there, y axis is there. But instead of x and y axis, we are replacing it with intercept axis and slope axis. Let us see why is this required. Okay, and that is how the Hogg transform is understood. Suppose you have another straight line. This slope will be different compared to straight line what you have here, because the slope of this and the y-intercept of this straight line and the slope of this and y-intercept of this straight line are different. You may come across two different corresponding points in this parameter space. Okay. So let us go into the details of this and further understand what is the arc transforms. See, this point corresponds to this straight line, and this point corresponds to the blue straight line. Okay, but the only difference is here the axis parameters are taken as x and y. Here the axis parameters are taken as m and n. Okay? So now let us take this simple picture here. Here we find that for all the corresponding points available in this straight line, okay, there could be multiple lines that was found in basically your parameter space. But because all these points are available on the straight line, all these lines, whatever you come across in the parameter space, they intercept at a corresponding point. So how it is mapped is, suppose you have a point here. This point available on the straight line could be, okay, a straight line in the parameter space. Similarly, this point available in the straight line could be a straight line in the parameter space. This point available in the straight line will also be a parameter in the straight line. But since all these points are available on a straight line, all these lines that you come across in parameter set, that is intercepting at one particular point. Now what do you understand from this logic? From this logic we understand that, okay, if there is a straight line, if there is a straight line and there are multiple points available in the straight line, you find that all these points intercept at a corresponding point in the parameter space. So if at all you come across a single point in a parameter space, it implies this point, okay, is corresponding to multiple points available on a straight line, and all of them are points on the straight line. Okay, so this is a very important understanding that we may have to get into before we could learn what is Hawk transforms. Okay, so let me explain it once again so that you are very clear about the process. If there are multiple points available in the straight line, and if we call this as image space, all these points in they are all available on a single straight line. All this will correspond to an intersection point in the parameter space. So you come across an intersection point in the parameter space, and these point, if you take corresponding each of the point, it will lead to a line in the parameter space. Okay. Yes. Now to make this understand much better, I think people are trying to join. Yeah. Yeah. So let us understand this in detail. So what happens is, suppose you have a straight line. Now let us see what is meant by parameter space. Okay. So you have a straight line. So what we do, we draw a line, correspond a green line is drawn from the center of this coordinate to the straight line. So we call this from the center to this straight line, we draw a line perpendicular to it. By drawing a line perpendicular to it, the length of this line is denoted as rho. Okay. Suppose if you have a straight line here or you have a straight line somewhere else, so you draw a line perpendicular to the line, and the length of that line, whatever we draw, we call it as rho. Then from the origin, assuming that this is the origin, the total amount of angle that is taken by this straight line what we have drawn, we call it as theta. So we now use, in terms of instead of m and n, we now use two parameters called rho and theta to express the parameter space. Okay. So let me tell you what is rho. Rho is the line or the length of the vector that has been drawn from the center of the xy coordinate system to the line that is available, and that is line is drawn perpendicular to the line. Then, considering this as the reference axis, the total amount of angle that this line is drawn, we call that as theta. So using these two parameters, we will now define another expression called rho is equal to x cos theta plus y sin theta. Okay, so we can express the value, we can find out the value of rho and we can find the value of theta, or we can find, if not all you know theta, you can find the value of rho by using this expression rho is equal to x cos theta plus y sin theta. Okay, so use this as the parameter space, and we will now try to see how to detect the lines in the image. So theta is the line orientation, and rho is the distance between the origin and the actual line. Okay. Now let us understand. So by using this parameter, okay, by bringing in cos theta and sin theta here instead of just m and n, okay, a point in image space is now represented as a sinusoid in the parameter space. Okay. So if you try to take on or understand this, we'll, So if at all you have basically a straight line in the xy space, it is equivalent to a point in the, or it is equal to a sinusoid in the parameter space. Okay. So this is the, so you consider, assume that you take this point on the straight line. This point is corresponding to a sinusoid in the parameter space. Okay. So this is what is the concept of your Hawk transform. We'll discuss about it. Suppose you take another point here that will again lead to another sinusoid, but okay, it is found that the point where no this intersect, it implies all the points are available in the same straight line. So you can take another point here. Again, it will have one more sinusoid, and that also will basically refer to a point available on the straight line. So the point where it is intersecting, all this point implies that all the points that you have considered are all from the single straight line. Okay. Now let us understand in another different way. Okay. Let us see this process now. Suppose you come across graph like this, or you take the graph that is available at the bottom. Now there are three sinusoids, and there is a small intercept point here. By seeing this graph, what do you understand? Okay, so let us not now see the picture on top. Let us only see the picture at the bottom. Suppose you are able to get an image like this, or you are able to get a graph like this. Okay, what does this implies? This implies that okay, there are 3 points available in the input image, and all the 3 points are available on a straight line. The reason is every point available in the xy coordinate system will be corresponding to a sinusoid if at all you are able to transform from xy coordinate to rho theta coordinate system. So every point available here in the straight line is corresponding to a sinusoid in the parameter space. And since all these sinusoids are able to intercept at this point, it implies all these points are available on a straight line. Suppose you take one more, assume that we draw one more line here. Okay, we draw one more line, or we may draw one more line. So you may again come across multiple sinusoids, but again somewhere you may find that there is an intercept point available here. Okay, so all the sinusoids that are corresponding to that intercept implies there are so many number of points available on the straight line. Okay, so that is what is the basic understanding of this logic. Okay. Similarly, we can even try to find out the concepts of your Hawk transform with regarding to circles also. Okay. So what is no? Let us come back to the logic now. What is Hawk transform? Hawk transform is you are trying to now transfer the image from the xy coordinate system to a system called parameter space, wherein the coordinates now are not xy but they are rho and theta. And we also know what is rho, what is theta. Okay, so this is what is the relationship between your input x and y, as well as your parameter space, that is rho and theta. Okay, now for every single point available in an input image corresponds to a sinusoid in the parameter space, or if at all you take a Hawk transform, for every single point available the input image is corresponding to a sinusoid in your Hawk transform. Okay, and suppose you come across multiple sinusoids, assume that there are 10 sinusoids available, and all the 10 sinusoids are able to intercept at a corresponding point. This implies these 10 points, these 10 sinusoids are corresponding to single points, corresponding to points on a single straight line. Okay, let me now repeat it once again. Suppose you have taken an image and you have done a Hawk transform and you are able to get an image. In that image, assume that there are 10 sinusoids available. Okay, and all the 10 sinusoids are able to intercept at one corresponding point. So what do you mean? What do you understand from this? This implies, okay, because there is only one intercept point for all the 10 sinusoids, it implies there are 10 points available in a straight line. That is the meaning of this. Okay, suppose you have around 30 sinusoids and all of them are intercepting at the same point. What do you mean by that? That implies, okay, there is one straight line and there are 30 points available in the straight line. Okay, so let us understand this in once again. Assume that you have a Hawk transform output and there are two intercept points. And in the first intercept point, there are 30 lines, 30 sinusoids. In the second intercept point, there are around 60 points, 60 sinusoids. What do you mean by this now? This implies there are two straight lines because there are two intercept points. Intercept point is basically this. This is what intercept point is. Okay, suppose you have an image like this after getting Hawk transform. Now, if at all there are 30 sinusoids, okay, and to one intercept point, it implies there are 30 points available in a straight line, and all the 30 points are part of the straight line. Suppose you have an intercept here and one more intercept somewhere, but on this intercept there are 60 lines, and on this intercept there are 30 lines. What is that implies? It implies that there are two straight lines, okay, and in the first straight line there are 30 points, okay, and in second straight line there are 60 points. Okay, so if you try to understand this, the 60 point straight line, or the line that has 60 points is actually longer than the first line, because the first line is having only 30 points, the second line is having 60 points. So now by understanding the number of sinusoids available in a Hawk transform, you will be able to decide what would be the length of the straight line and how many straight lines are available in a given image. Okay, so let us now understand this. And now before we could do some simple programs, I would like to know whether have you followed this math concept, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, see, please know this is a very important concept that we may have to understand, and then let us see how to build up on these concepts. Okay, yes. Yeah. So hope all of you are able to know this concept here. Yes. So keeping this in mind, let us see how to build your Hawk transform. So to understand Hawk transform, what we can actually do is, yeah. So I'm just open MATLAB here. Yeah. So now to know what is this Hawk transform is, so what I will do, I'll just go to MATLAB and type help Hawk. Okay. When I type to understand what is Hawk transform, so MATLAB is having an inbuilt function called Hawk transform. I can now open this, and then now you will be able to understand what is this Hawk transform is. Okay, the clear discussion is basically given in the MATLAB help file to understand what is Hawk transform is. Okay, yeah. So now the function based upon this. So you have h theta rho. H is the Hawk, for Hawk transform output. Theta and rho is basically going to be the x and y parameters. Okay, that we just discussed. And there are multiple parameters that could be set, and they have also given you some examples how to compute Hawk transforms. Okay, now this is what you get a quick reference from MATLAB if you use this command help Hawk transform. Okay, now what I can also do is, okay, instead of getting a quick reference, I can go to this if you see the top portion of your MATLAB here on top. So here there is a search window, so I can even type here Hawk transform. Okay, so I can just type Hawk transform, and when I type Hawk transform, help file gets opened like this. Okay, so there are two ways now for you to learn the concepts that are available in MATLAB. For every concept, there is a help file available, and you can get help file in two different ways. One is through going to the help. The other one is through command prompt. Now here we will see what is this all about. Okay. Yeah. So if you see this example clearly illustrates what is Hawk transform and how this Hawk transform can be used for various applications. Now you can go to this, but let me also tell you what is this example is all about. So here they have illustrated how to use the concept of Hawk transform to do multiple applications or develop multiple examples and applications. So they have taken input image called circuit.tiff. It's an inbuilt image available in MATLAB. Using this command I is equal to im read, they're able to read the image. Okay. So once this image is read, then this image is rotated. So that now see if you take the circuit image, okay, if you assume that it is not rotated, it will have only x and y axis. Okay. Now can you tell me why a circuit will have only tracks only in the x and y direction? Why not it will have tracks in the x diagonal directions? I think all of you are from engineering electronics background. Yes. Why does a circuit here? See, this is a circuit. Maybe I can show you the circuit. So we're able to read this image. Once we read this image, then now if it's free. So I'm able to display this image in MATLAB. Yeah, this is the original image, which is circuit image. If you see this, it is having lines only on the x and y axis. It will not have lines on the diagonal axis. Anybody can tell me why a circuit picture? It could be a PCB circuit or it could be a VLSS circuit. Lines are only on the x and y directions. It will not be having lines on any other directions. Any of you can tell me why it is? Oh. Hello? Any of you, can you unmute yourself and just tell me why circuit diagrams or electronic circuits will have lines or no circuit drawn only in x and y directions but not in a diagonal direction?
Is it due to manufacturing restrictions?
Oh, very good. That is the only right answer, because no, you don't have manufacturing process that will help in fabricating an IC wherein the track can be on the diagonal lines. No, it could be 45 degrees or it could be 13 degrees or 15 degrees. It is not possible because of the manufacturing process. Okay, so lines will always be in terms of x and y direction, that is vertical and horizontal. Okay. Second important point is by having x and y, if you have multiple layers, in one layer lines will be only in the horizontal axis. In the second layer, lines will be only in the vertical axis. Again, third layer, again it will be horizontal. Fourth layer, it will be again vertical. So what happens when if at all you stack multiple layers onto a single chip or onto a single PCB, it will also strengthen the PCB board. Okay, that is the reason why they try to put lines only in x and y directions. Okay, now since you have only x and y directions, so what does this program does here is, okay, we need to have lines along other directions as well. That is why you are using a command called im rotate, and you are rotating the image by 33 degrees. Okay, this is the command that is available in MATLAB, wherein you can read the input image I, where I will store all the data of your input image. Then you're rotating that image by 33 degrees, and then you're trying to display that image. You're able to see this image now. When you start rotating the image by 33 degrees, since the original image whatever you see, it was this. Okay, now when you rotate it left, okay, that is your anti-clockwise by 33 degrees, you find that there will be a lot of this square image would have become different shape. It will take a shape of a rhombus. Okay, square would have taken the shape of a rhombus, and it will occupy multiple other space. You will see that there is all black spots here. So now to make sure that this image doesn't become bigger, they use this command called crop. Crop will again make sure that the image is reduced to its original size. Okay, and that is the program that you see here, line step 1 and step 2. Okay. Now, there is another method of finding out edges available in a given image called edge. So if you want to learn more about edge, you can go to MATLAB and then try to see what is the edge command is trying to do. There is an operation called canny operation. We will discuss about this edge detection next week. But now, since we are this operation, what it will do is when you try to run this command on the variable ROTI using an operator called canny operator, all the edges available in this image, that is the straight lines, will be captured, and you find that there are multiple straight lines. And since this is now going to be having only gray, white and black, so we are giving the name as black and white, that is PW. Okay, but this operator, okay, edge operator or edge function will try to find out the edges available in a given image, and you are able to display that. Okay, yes. So once the image is rotated and it is we are doing edge detection, we use this function called hog function, and this edge detected image will be applied here, and from that we will determine three parameters called h, theta, and rho. So let us now run this image and see what will what will be the output corresponding to this. Okay. So now we have just rotated the image. After rotating the image, we are doing canny edge operation, so that we'll be able to get the black and white image, which will consisting of only edges. Then after that, we run a program called hog function. Okay. So when you do it, so now you are able to see that you are able to transform the black edge detected image from X5 space to hog space. Okay, that is hog space is your row data space. Now, if you try to understand what is H, so I'll just type who's H. So now, if you see in the hog space, the image is of size 779 cross 180. Now, what is the original size of the image? The original size of the image, that is, it was 280 cross 272. After it was rotated, it has now become 280 cross 272. But after performing the edge detection, it is still remaining 280 cross 272. But after you perform hog transform, the image size has now been changed from 280 cross 272 to 779 cross 180. So that means that implies for every point or every straight line, every point on the straight line available in the input image will now correspond to a sinusoid in the hog transform image. So if you see, this would be the size of the hog transform image. Now just see how the hog transform output looks like. So we are trying to take this H. So H is the output of your hog transform. Okay. Then we are converting it from gray to matte. Okay. Again, there is a function called gray to matte function, and then we are displaying the X data, Y data, and then we are trying to label all the axes and see, and also giving a color map of hot, so that we are able to see all the lines or all the sinusoids available in the input image. Okay. So there are multiple sinusoids that you're able to get in from the hog transform. Now, see, it may be very, very difficult for us to see all these sinusoids because there are multiple straight lines available, and now there are multiple intercepts here. See, these are all the intercepts what you come across. Again, there may be multiple intercepts here, multiple intercepts. Okay, and there are also multiple intercepts. So, because there are multiple straight lines, you may come across multiple sinusoids and multiple intercept points. Okay, suppose you had only two straight lines. Okay, then you have got an output where there would be corresponding only two intercepts. Because there are multiple straight lines, so there are multiple sinusoids and multiple intercept points. Okay, so this is the hog transform output. But now what happens is, to identify the most significant straight lines available, there is another function called hog peak. Okay, so again you can go to help file and just type what is hog peak. Okay, I'll just tell you what is hog peak help. So now if you take what is this hawk peak command is all about, so this will basically tell you identify peaks in hawk transform. See, that means there might be multiple straight lines. Okay, multiple straight lines, multiple straight lines of multiple lengths. So that when there are multiple lengths, there will be multiple points. Now, suppose if at all the straight line is very long, okay, assume that there is one straight line having it's a very long straight line. That implies the number of points there would be large. Okay. Similarly, take one more straight line. The straight line is very short, so the number of points available in that straight line should be very very short. So now, out of these two straight lines, the shorter straight line and longer straight line, the longer straight line is more important than the shorter straight line. So when you start identifying the Hawk transform, for a shorter straight line, you will have multiple sinusoids. For the longer straight line, also you will have multiple sinusoids. But since for the longer straight line, there will be one corresponding point we call as intercept point, and there are no more than hundreds of no points available on the straight line. That peak, the intensity of that intercept point will be very high. Okay, now for a shorter straight line, the intercept point would be the weak intensity of that would be very weak. So when the intensity is very weak, we can simply neglect it, assuming that it's a straight line, but still it is short. And only the straight lines that are very long, we are supposed to retain. So that is where the hawk peak commands helps us in this process. If you see here, we are using this two variables, h, the output of the hawk transform, and number of peaks. Okay, so using this, we are able to find out how many peaks are here. So here what we do is we are trying to define we need only 5 peaks. So we are identifying that we need only 5 peaks. That means we are identifying that should be only 5 lines which are very significant to be identified. Okay. So by running this, we are able to now see that yes, we are able to generate another variable called p. And if you see what is p is all about, so it implies P is there are 5 peaks which are very significant, and these are the 5 peaks that we are going to consider. Okay, that means there are 5 straight lines that are very very significant and they are longer in length. We are going to consider only those straight lines that are longer in length, and we are taking the top 5. Suppose you change this 5 to 10, you'll be able to get 10 straight lines which are all the top 10 straight lines. Okay, so that's how you are identifying the peak. Further, what we do is we try to now find out where are these straight lines all about. So now we try to take P. So if you take P, so these are the corresponding points 517, 147. So if you take this picture here, so 517, okay, 517 can be somewhere in this x-axis, and 147 can be in the y-axis. So it may come somewhere here 517 cross 147. Some peaks which are available here are the points that correspond to straight lines that are longer enough in the image. Okay, yes. So now when you take P of all rows comma 2, all rows comma 2, so that becomes your x-axis. We are reading out the x-axis, and P of 1, okay, all rows comma 1 implies your y-axis. So you are trying to identify x-axis, y-axis, and you are trying to compute the theta of it and the rho of it, and you get back your x and y. So now from Hawk transform, you are able to identify what is the value of theta, what is the value of rho of the corresponding point, and again transforming it back into x and y coordinate system. So you're able to now get back the x and y coordinate system, and then you're trying to superimpose that in the image. So if you see, these are the points that have been considered. So maybe around 5 points. You're able to see that 5 peak points, black ones. So these are the 5 peak points which corresponds to significant lines available in the input image. Okay. Yes. Then we identify number of lines now. So there is again a function called hog lines to find out the number of lines available in the input image, the black and white image. So what we do, we pass the parameter called black and white image, then the parameters called theta, rho, and also p. Because we need only 5 of them, we are able to send these 3-4 parameters and find out number of lines available in the image. So if you see the number of parameter lines, now lines is basically 1 cross 10. So if I type lines here, it tells you that it is 0.1 point. So I will type lines dot 0.1. So these are the various points of the straight line of 1. Okay, there are multiple points. Then similarly, lines dot 0.2. So you come across multiple points here. So using these points, we are trying to now see, okay, how to plot the lines on this statement. So this is the entire program to run that plot. See what we have done in this plot is we identify number of lines and we take the points on the point 1 and point 2 and we plot xy correspondingly the x-axis and y-axis and we give colors to it. Okay. Similarly, we also do what we do here is we plot beginning and end of the lines. So we try to put yellow and red color over there. Okay. Then we also determine the end points of the longest line by using this simple program. So when you try to run this entire code, so you find that these are the lines that are very significant for our from the longest lines available in this. Okay, and this is one of the longest line. Okay, and then we start with the yellow line and the red line, red mark, and this is yellow and red. So starting point and ending point. So we identify all the lines that are available which are very significant according to this program what has been written. Okay, so we are able to find out the number of lines, and then finally we also find out which is the longest line there. So this is the longest line out of all the lines that have been identified. Okay, yes. So now if you see or if you try to understand this example basically illustrates how to find the longest line, how to find the shortest line, and how to find number of lines. Those are very significant in your given image. Okay. So now did you understand this program? What is Hawk transform is? And we'll see how to use this Hawk transform in developing multiple applications. Any doubt you have? Anybody?
Hello, sir.
Sir,
Yeah, Shishmita, yes.
Sir, in this we can find only the significant lines, right, sir?
Yes.
Is there any method where we can find all the lines in the given image?
Yeah, see, to find out all the lines in the given image, what you do is you go to the code. Okay, there you have put 5 here. See that number of lines, you see? Hawk peaks. Yeah. So if you take Hawk peaks, this function, okay. See this function, Hawk peaks h comma number of peaks locates peaks in the Hawk transform matrix h generated by Hawk function. Num peaks specifies the maximum number of peaks to identify. Peaks is a q by 2 matrix where q can range from 0 to number of peaks. Okay. So now this number of peaks you decide. Okay, so if at all you tell that no, your peak is 10, 20, 30, or no 1, 2. So depending upon that, you will get all the lines available in the given image. Okay, next is now one more function that now can help us is Hog lines. Okay, if you again go to this Hog lines, and again if you try to use this command. So this Hog lines is going to tell you extract the line segment based on Hawk transform. Extracts line segments in image associated with particular bins in a Hawk transform. Okay, that means you are going to, since you would have already used Hog peaks, so corresponding to that Hawk peaks, the number of Hog lines are also going to be identified. Okay, so you can use this Hog peaks and Hog lines, and by setting those parameters there, you can try to find out all the lines available in a given image. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
So any other queries with regarding
Sir,
the Hawk transform?
Sir, why do we rotate the image, sir?
Okay. See, you could take the same image and you could have done it, not an issue. Okay. But no, see, when you do this Hawk transform, it is going to work accurately on X and Y directions. But whenever the lines are not in X and Y directions, okay, suppose if it is no vertical, it is not in X and Y, but it is 45 degrees, 30 degrees. Okay, so since that image did not have any lines or edges in that directions, that is why they rotated that image. Otherwise, you could take the straight line image as it is, and then you could have found all the Hawk transform. Okay, because no, they wanted to have they wanted to demonstrate that Hawk transform is even capable of identifying the images not only along x and y direction but in all other directions. That is why they rotated the image. Okay? But you can use without rotation also you can do that transformation. Hello.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Any other queries? Okay, now see this is what is developed by MATLAB. Okay, it's a common code available in MATLAB, but MATLAB has already developed this Hawk transform, and they're able to put it as a help so that people can learn. But see, as all of you may be very curious to know why we should use DWT before Hawk transform. Okay, so now the concept here is when you do DWT, you are able to get the edges only along the x-axis, y-axis, and diagonal axis. So what you should actually do is, if at all you are using Hawk transform directly on the input image, Hawk transform accuracy in detecting the number of lines or the lines available in a given image may not be very efficient. So let me repeat it. If you use Hawk transform directly on the input image, okay, and if at all you are having the input, there are multiple lines available in the input image, your Hawk transform may not be efficient enough in identifying all the lines in the given image. Now, to make your Hawk transform more efficient, so what we do is we resolve the lines available in a given image, and at least we segregate the lines. We tell that, okay, this image is now going to have only vertical lines. This image is now going to have only horizontal lines. This image is now going to have only diagonal lines. And then when we give these inputs to Hawk transform, it would further enhance the identification of lines in a given image. That is the reason why we try to perform discrete wavelet transform prior to Hawk transform. So I want you to now see whether you can change this code. Okay, whatever code is available here, instead of using the black and white image, okay, and then performing the entire task. Instead of what we have done here is we have taken an input image and then we have rotated the input image and we have done edge. So what I wanted you to do is, okay, read this image, whatever we had taken earlier, perform DWT. After performing DWT, now you will have 4 subbands: LL, LH, HL, HH. Now take only the LH subband and perform edge operation and all the process. Similarly, repeat this process. Again, you have to copy this code and put it at the bottom, but repeat this code only on the LH subbands, and then HL subbands, and then on HH subbands. So what happens is you're able to resolve the edges and you're giving it to Hawk transform. It becomes more easy for Hawk transform to identify the number of edges or lines available in a given image. Okay, so the modification that is required is the code line from 1 to 6, whatever you have. Okay, this is directly working on the input image. Instead of this, what I wanted you to do is take DWT on input image and then perform the Hawk transform independently on all the 3 subbands, LH, HL, and HH. Then you find out how efficient is Hawk transform in identifying the image lines in a given image. Okay, first. Second thing is you can even run or do the same program for your original image without DWT, then see whether Hawk transform is able to find out better lines in a given image. Okay, now this you have to try to do it and understand and find out which is better, whether to use DWT on Hawk transform or only Hawk transform to identify the number of lines in a given image. Okay, yes. Now, see, if you take this program is also going to tell you lines. Now, if you can see, it is going to tell you number of lines. So if you can count the number of lines using this simple program here, you can even identify number of edges available in a given image. Okay, so now you can try this entire thing and then let us see if at all you have further doubt, you can let me know. Okay, we will see how to work on this Hawk transform. Is it clear to all of you? Yes. So we'll try doing this. So the task is output of DWT, you will be able to get 3 subbands, LH, HL, and HH. And all these 3 subbands will hold the directions along the vertical axis, horizontal axis and diagonal axis. So take these three images and again perform edge detection and Hawk transform, identify the lines. See whether number of lines identified by Hawk transform is better, okay, than your direct method of detecting the number of lines. So that is also you are supposed to actually do. Okay. Now we will go to another simple concept here. Okay, that is this concept. Okay. This concept is called as transformation. Okay, so we'll see what is this transformation is all about. Okay, I will just uh, yeah. Now you should understand. Okay, very important thing. Assume that we have a mobile phone in our hand, and we are trying to take the snapshot of an image. Okay, so you are holding the mobile phone in your hand, and you are trying to stand, and you are able to take the pictures. So when you try to take the picture, okay, so assume that you're taking the picture of a tree, okay, or you're taking the picture of a building, okay. So now you're holding the camera and you're taking the picture of a building from one side of the building. Your friend may also hold a camera and you will be taking the picture of the same building from the other end. Now what happens? You're actually taking the picture of the same building, but when you see the images, both the images may be totally different because the place, the position where you stand to take pictures are totally different. So what happens? The position, see the first picture, no, the camera, x and y and z axis. The first coordinate system is what you the reference plane for you to take image. Now, when the image is taken, the object what you see will be different. Now, what is required is, okay, now this object, whatever you have taken of a building, okay, that has to map to world coordinate system. Okay, so every object, whatever or every picture, every concept that is being available should be mapped to a world coordinate system. Now, only then it is possible for bringing uniformity in our image processing algorithms for detection of object or any kind of other activity. So what happens is now there is a process called transforming the objects from one coordinate system to next coordinate system. Let us see how does that help. See now if you see this picture here on the left hand side, both of them are actually same. Okay, but when you can now transform this image from one coordinate system to next coordinate system. So now this next coordinate system can be something, it could be scaled or it could be translated and so on. Okay. Now there is a concept called affine transformation. Now let us take for example, there is a pixel available in this image. That pixel is denoted by x comma y comma z because x axis, y axis and z axis you come across a pixel called x comma y comma z. Now this x comma y comma z, okay, when it is the entire image is transformed to a new coordinate system, that same point in the new coordinate system is denoted as x dash y dash z dash. So now this x dash y dash z dash is a transformed coordinate systems. Okay. So now we are trying to transform p, that is your xyz, to q. Now to relate p and q, we have this relations, and these relationships are explained in detail using a concept called affine transformation. Let us discuss this in detail. Okay. Now, if at all you are just trying to translate is shifting the objects from one plane to next plane. Okay, when you try to take an object and you try to shift the object along the x-axis or along the y-axis or along the z-axis, as it is, we call that process of translation. In translation, what happens? Your x plus tx is the shifted point. Ty is again shifted across the y-axis. Tz is shifted across the z-axis. So you get x dash, y dash, z dash. Scaling basically is you're either compressing the entire object or elongating the entire object. So you either compress or decompress. So now that becomes sx, sy, sz. So we call it as scaling, okay, of the parameters. So we have translation, we have scaling. Then we have rotation. So in rotation, what happens? Your objects, whatever is in the first axis, can be rotated totally along the x-axis or y-axis or z-axis. So in that case, you see that, okay, if at all you are taking z as a reference point and rotating the object along the z-axis, okay, so your x-axis will change, y-axis will change, and it is denoted as x cos theta minus y sin theta, and x sin theta plus y cos theta along the x dash and y dash, and z dash will be as it is, it will come to z. Okay. So like that, there are multiple rotation that can happen. Okay, you can even rotate it along the x-axis, wherein there will be no rotation along the x-axis, and it will remain as it is. But along y and z-axis, there is rotation here. Okay. Similarly, you can rotate it along the y-axis. Again, you can know these are the points. Now, to perform the rotation or translation or your scaling, it's a simple mathematical matrix operation. So your x comma y comma z are the pixels available in the original image. If at all you want to transform that x comma y comma z to x dash y dash z dash, you are multiplying the input in the pixels by a corresponding matrix or a 3 cross 3 matrix, where if at all it is a scaling operation, you come across xx, xy, xz, okay, which is all along the diagrams. Okay, yes. If at all you're rotating the entire thing along the z-axis, then we remove sx 0 and replace it by cos theta minus sin theta, and here sin theta cos theta, and all others will be 0 0 1 0 0 1 because we are going to rotate it along the z-axis. Okay, so this matrix is now called as the transformation matrix. XYZ is input matrix, x dash y dash z dash is the output matrix. Okay. Similarly, you can now have multiple transformations now taken up, and doing all this transformation along the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. See, in this case, you are rotating the entire image along the x-axis. So you see that this will be 1 0 0 and 1 0 0, and this will be the matrix now. Okay. So you can now decide what will be y of theta, and accordingly multiply x, y, z through this matrix and translate all the pixels available in the input image to a new pixels available in the output image, and we perform rotation. Similarly, this is the rotation for along the y-axis, rotation along the z-axis. So combining all of them together, we now define affine transformation, which is denoted as this matrix. X, Y, Z is your input pixels, and M11, M12, M13, M14. All this they correspond to either scaling, translation, and rotation. Okay? So this concept of performing either scaling of a given input or translating the input in input image or rotating an input image is actually performed using a concept called affine transform. So this is what we call as an affine transform. Okay. Yes. So I've introduced two concepts here today. One is your Hawk transform. The other one is affine transform. Now using this, let us see how we can build certain examples. Okay. Yes. Now let us take up the first example here. This is one of the work done by some students in a foreign university. I'm trying to take that and trying to explain you what is the example that we're going to do today. And I'll send you the code. I wanted to run it and then see how does this thing work. Okay. Yes. Okay. So today we will discuss about what is this concept is all about. Okay, this is an example that is available from Stanford University. So today I will send you the code and explain the concept, and I want you to run the code and I want you to complete this example today itself. Okay. So traffic sign recognition for vision-based driver assistance in land-based vehicles. So the project that we're going to do today is we are trying to see how to identify the traffic signal signs. Suppose assume that you are taking a car and you are trying to drive a car. So when you are driving your car, you may be very much concentrated on the road. Okay, there may be a traffic signal or sign available in the side of the road. Maybe to tell that there's a school zone, hospital zone, no horn, there's a hump, there's a no cross section coming in. So like that, there will be multiple signs available on the side of the road. Or there could also be a sign stating that you have to stop here, you have to slow down, you have to there's a traffic signal in the traffic intersection coming up. So like that, there will be a lot of signboards available on the road, along the road. Since you are trying to drive the vehicle, concentrating on the traffic, you would miss out seeing these traffic signs. So what happens is, so today they are talking about this. It's a very old project. So I have a camera mounted on the vehicle. So these cameras available on the vehicle will capture the entire image that is available in front of the vehicle. Okay, as they keep capturing the image in front of the vehicle, then what they do is they are basically designed to capture, okay, only this traffic signs available along the road. That means images or video sequence are continuously captured as you keep driving the vehicle. But whenever a traffic sign is available or present in that image being captured, then there will be a pop-up to the driver telling that there is a traffic sign there stating that you have to stop, you have to park, you have to slow down the vehicle. There's a hospital there. There's a school there. So like that, there is an application that could help the driver to know what is the traffic sign available in that corresponding location, and that is what we call as vision-based driver assistance in land-based vehicles. Okay, so now we are trying to see how to recognize the traffic sign from a given image or a video sequence, so that from the traffic sign we can identify this traffic sign is basically there is a stop signal, or there's a yellow light, there's a red light, there's a green light. Okay, and that will pop up as an information to the driver to act accordingly. So that is the basic process. So they have defined what is the motivation, they have defined what is the objectives of this, and what are the challenges. Okay, if you can go to that, you'll understand it much better. Then the entire references that are available is also been given there. Okay, yes. So now what we are going to do here is, so the entire project I'll be able to explain it to you, and I'll be able to make you understand how that works. But we wanted to improvise this. That is our requirement. How do I improvise this now? See, what they have done is they have done the entire coding without they have done the entire coding using the images directly. But what we want to do is, can we use discrete Wavelet transform, okay, as an intermediate step to improvise the program so that your traffic signs can be identified accurately. So that is the assignment that is given to you. Okay, so the entire code is known to us, but instead of directly doing this activity, we are now going to see, can we improvise this performance of this image processing algorithm. Instead of directly processing the code, can you use the DWT subbands and then improvise the performance of this image processing algorithm. Okay, yes. So the main object of the project is to successfully detect traffic signs from a stationary image of a normal street scene. The algorithm should also be able to extract features from the traffic signs and find the best match from the predefined templates. The algorithm should also be robust towards variation of the quality of the image. So this is where, okay, our DWT plays an important role, and I want you to understand how does this quality can be improved by using DWT. Okay, so the algorithm should be able to extract features from the traffic signs and find the best match from predefined templates. Yes. The algorithm should also be robust towards variation of quality of images. Suppose your camera is moving, your vehicle is moving very fast. The camera would have acquired low quality images, or because of the climatic conditions, okay, as in it is raining or it is not, light is not so very bright, the image that is acquired will be very low quality images. So even in that presence, your image processing algorithm should be able to tell what the traffic sign is all about and caution the driver about the traffic sign. Okay, and that is where we have to see how to improvise this algorithm. Yes, let us see the challenges now. Depending upon the quality of the images, several challenges can be anticipated. The first challenge is to restore the distortion of the signs due to relative orientation between the signs and the camera. So what happens is, so your vehicle is now moving, the traffic signs are actually placed, so that it is visible. But your camera may be located at a different location on the car. So the angle at which the camera is identifying or capturing the sign would be different. Suppose you have one more vehicle, and in that vehicle the camera is located at the center of the car. In another vehicle, the camera is located at the side of the car. So it doesn't matter from which angle you are able to capture the image, but it should give you, there will be multiple distortions. Another challenge is how to effectively detect the edges of the signs when they are blended in with the background. So what happens now when you are trying to go through a highway, there will be it will be totally vacant space, and there will be lots of trees, lots of farming activity going on. There will be only one traffic sign which will be red in color. So how to distinguish between red colored traffic sign and the background? So that is again a challenge. Also, it could be potentially challenging to extract features from an image due to various illumination conditions. That means when you are trying to drive your vehicle, early morning light may be very dim, very low bright, and afternoon brightness may be very high. Again, in the evening times, the brightness will be very low. So again, you have to see how to identify the images correctly. Finally, in a scenario when traffic sign is partially blocked by a tree or the sign is cut off by the boundary of the picture, it would be difficult to detect and match the partial sign. So again, this is another very important challenge. So let us see how to overcome all these challenges using our MATLAB program. Okay, yes. So I will share the code to all of you. You can now see how that code works. Okay. So I will share all these images to you. Okay, these are the template images. If you see this image, this is one image that is actually ready-made image available in the code, which they have used to develop this hologram. Okay, so this is the car. So you are actually there is a car in front of you. Then the car, what you are traveling, there is a signboard here. Now we have to see what is the signboard is. It tells that there is a merger of roads here. So the driver may not be busy, concentrating on that. He would be concentrating on the vehicle available here. So now the driver assistance system should capture this image until there is a merger of sign. Similarly, take one more image here. See again, there is a lot of background here, and there is one sign here telling that yes, there is a dip here. Okay, so we have to now see. So they would have made this dip because the water has to flow. So we have now see whether this image could be understood by the driver. Okay, and see this is the bonnet of the car, and your image camera is available somewhere in the car. Okay, now this is another sort of image. So there is no any traffic sign available here. Okay, but still you have to see can we also process such kind of images, and now maybe some traffic signs. See if you see here this image. Okay, there is a plus sign here. Okay, so this plus sign is not visible completely because there are a lot of trees at the background. So we have to see whether we can even identify these images here. Okay, yes. See now again, this is another image, but no, the light here is very bright, but this image sign board is not having that brightness. So we have to see whether we can process this and get the image. This is a bright image, so no issues. We can directly detect it. Yeah, there are two signs now. Okay, so that will indicate that there is a pavement place where the pedestrians can walk. So we have to identify both of this. Again, that's a challenge. Again, there is a image stating that yes, there is a red, yellow, and green. That means there's a traffic light ahead. So you have to see how to slow down your vehicle now. Okay. So again, this here you see that there are two signs. One is there is a right turn plus the speed limit is 35 kilometers per hour. So you have to read both of this. Okay. You cannot only read this. You cannot only read this. So you should now see how to read both of them. Okay. Yes. Yeah, now if you see here, because of no car vibration or whatever it is, there is a stop sign here. But that sign is not clearly visible because the camera is maybe because of vibration, it wouldn't have captured this. So now you have to see even in this kind of data, whatever is being captured, can your image processing algorithm perform effectively, perfectly fine. Okay. So this is another stop signal here. Yeah, now this is very clear. So it is visible to us, so we can stop. So now here you don't see anything. Okay, you have stop signal, but no camera is not disturbed, and there is again not stop signal, not completely visible. Okay. So like that, there are multiple images which we may have to process it, and then now see how effectively we can develop an image processing algorithm which can do all this activity. Okay. Yes. Let us go to the code. Okay. So now in this program, what is being done? We are giving the file name. File name basically refers to all the images that are available. We are able to define it. So now if at all you have image called stop ahead 134.png, semicolon. So file name can be any of this. Okay. Since they have all been put as semicolon, now file name can have multiple, it can have multiple files now. Okay. Now what you do is you define k as a parameter. So now they are very clearly told k is equal to 1 to 10 implies yellow warning signs. K equal to 11 to 20 implies red stop sign. That means all the images that are available here, which are stored in this sequence. Okay, there are images from 1 to 20. Okay, so from 1 to 20, all the images that are available over here, 1 to 10 basically is of having traffic signs yellow in color, and 11 to 20 are having traffic signs as stop. Okay, that is what is defined. So if at all you want to process all the above images, you have to change the value of k. Then you read this image by changing the different values of k. Then you do a process called color enhance. Okay, so in color enhance, see again, this is a function now. Okay, this is a function. So you are passing that image and you are doing this color enhance. So I want you to go through this program and understand what is meant by color enhance. There is a concept called adaptive histogram equalization, which we will discuss tomorrow. What is meant by adaptive histogram equalization? Okay, yes. So once you enhance the color, then you do segmentation of the color. So you try to do this color segmentation by performing HSI threshold R. See again, this is a program, a function call, where in that you are trying to read that image and you are trying to find out whether it is a yellow or it is red. Okay, so for that this function is returned. Okay, yes. So once you are able to read that color segmentation process, okay, whether it is yellow or it is red, then you are able to display that image. You are able to open, do this activity, and you are finding out edges available in the given. So again, edge function is basically used. So you're trying to find out the edges available in the given image, and again you're using Hawk transform here. Okay, so using the concept of Hawk transform, again finding out the Hawk peaks, and then trying to entirely run this program and get back the edges, and then finally you are able to display the results. So let me run this code and see whether what is this going to be. So I'm here defining k equal to 1. Okay, since k is equal to 1, it implies it is going to only process the yellow warning signs. Yeah. So this is the first image that has been read, and we know that there is a yellow sign here. So this MATLAB code should be able to perform all the contrast adjustment, histogram equalization, identify the object only with regarding to yellow color, and extract that color image. So only that yellow region, the signboard has been extracted from the entire given image. Okay. Similarly, what I can do if I change this, so instead of k equal to 1, I can change k equal to 12. I'll make it as 12. Then again run the code. Now it will only capture the stop signal. So it is able to capture only the stop signal, stop sign. Okay. So now this is the entire code which I will upload it to you along with the images also. I want you to download and run the code first. See whether you are able to get back all the images whatever you have. Then modify the code and use DWT output here and see whether you can further improvise the process of identifying traffic signs. Is it clear to all of you? Okay. Yes, let me stop here for today, and I'll upload the entire code along with the images. First, run the code, see whether you are able to understand, and then there are 2-3 important concepts there. One is histogram equalization and Hawk transform. Hawk transform, I have explained it to you. We will see what is meant by histogram equalization, which we'll discuss in the next class. But see whether you can modify the code and then use this code with DWT. Okay. Now, instead of using those images that are available there, I wanted you to capture your own images. Okay. See, capturing images from your where you stay, and also you're taking your bike, capture images wherever it is possible. Use those images in your program and see whether this code is able to capture the traffic signs, okay, from the real-time images that you acquired. Okay. Yes. Now, is it clear to all of you? Yes. Yashwant Kumar. ಆದಿತ್ಯ,
Yes, sir.
ಈಗ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಪ್ಪ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇದು ಕೋಡು?
ಹೌದು ಸರ್, ಹೌದು ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ, ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡಿ, ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಸಿ. ಭೂಮಿಕಾ, ಭೂಮಿಕಾ, ಮಾಧ್ವೇಶ್ ಬಲಾಲ್, ಮಾಧ್ವೇಶ್, yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, okay. Have you understood the concept here? What is Hawk transform is? Yeah, your voice, I'm not able to listen. Not an issue. Sandeep. Vikram Shankar.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now whatever we discussed today, were you able to follow this? And
Yes,
can
sir.
you
Yes,
complete
sir.
the exercise today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Then I'll stop here. And again, the video recording of this will be uploaded on your YouTube. I hope you are getting my messages on your Google Classroom. Correct? Yeah, and there is an assignment deadline submission today, so I want all of you to complete that assignment as well. And then tomorrow onwards, we will take up some signal processing applications. And then once we complete signal processing applications, then we take up some advanced examples, and then see how to build some examples in MATLAB, which will be used for your completion of projects. Okay. Okay. Any doubts you have? Yeah.
Sir, exercise 2 deadline, it's not changed. You said you can get on Monday.
Oh, sorry, I'll change it today. Okay. But exercise 3, have you all completed?
Yes, sir, trying now.
Yes, sir.
You have to complete. No, if you don't do it, then there is no point in you doing internship. Okay, let me make you point very clear. See, this is not a college where your task is given, you submit it. No, it's not like that. It is an internship program. In an internship program, it is both way working. In the sense, you have to do things. As long as you complete projects and submit the reports to us, that is success of internship. And we don't only keep teaching things here. Okay, so all of you please understand, internship implies you have to work on certain concepts and submit it. You have to complete projects, you have to update the code whatever has been given to you. That is what internship is all about. It is not classroom teaching, it is not tuition, it is not tutorial, it is not seminar, not workshop. It is internship. You have to do things. Okay, so we will be able to evaluate all your performances, and only then certificate would be issued to all of you. Okay. Yes. Now, next important thing is, please don't have any kind of intuition that this is image processing. It is only mathematics. We are using mathematics for learning image processing applications. Okay. So today the mathematics that we learned was Hawk transform. Okay. So now that is what we learned today, and we also understood another concept called affine transform. Okay, so Hawk transform is used to find out the objects in a given image. Affine transform is used to transform the image either through scaling, either to rotating and translation. Okay, that is what affine transform is capable of doing. We'll discuss about applications of affine transform in the next class. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Yes. So let us stop here. Any other doubts you have? Please let me know. If at all you have any doubts, you let me know.
Sir, could you just briefly explain about what we have to do in exercise 3?
Yeah, I'll do it. Exercise 3. Okay, so now all of you are able to see my desktop, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
So in exercise 3, I have given you a program. Okay, I'll show you what is that program is all about. See, this is exercise 3. See, I've explained you what this program is all about by using this comments. Okay. Now the task 1 is this. Whatever has been written in red is called your task. Okay. Yes. So task 1 is, see the rate, whatever you have here, is 2. I want you to change this rate from 0.01 to 5. And for each of this, I want you to find out what is the mean square error and PSNR and make a table out of that. Okay, if it is 0.01, what is mean square PSNR? If it is 0.05, what is mean square PSNR? If it is 5, what is mean square PSNR? You have to prepare a table. That is task 1. Okay. Then I will also explain to you what is meant by rate and how it is rated. Okay. If at all you have doubt, you can ask me later. Task 2 is basically like this. If at all your rate is 2.5, okay, rate is 2.5, set the rate is 2.5, vary the level. Level is what? Level is here. What is that level? Yeah. Level. Just a minute, hold on. Hello? Okay, so now if you see level, the level is 4. I want you to change the level from 1 to 6, but rate should be fixed as 2.5. Is it clear? So rate should be fixed as 2.5 and the level
Yes,
should
sir.
keep varying from 1 to 6 and then again find out mean square and PSNR. Okay. Then, so you should now see what is the meaning of wavelet decomposition command is. I want you to write a small note on this. What is wave decomposition? Wave DEC2. Okay. Task 3. Just now go to help of MATLAB. Type this. See what is wave decomposition is all about. That is task 3. And I have explained you all these things over there. Okay. Yeah. Then task 4 is this. Consider different images. So that means don't take this image only. That is no test pack 1. I want you to take different images now. Okay, which could be from internet or capture from your mobile phone or images from a building, whatever it is. Compress all the images for all the above conditions. Okay, but if your image is color image, you have to convert it to grayscale image by using a function called RGB to gray, and resize that image to 512 by 512, and at least take some 3-4 images which are not part of this example and see what is the compression ratio and mean square error and no PSNR. So I want you to do again a tabulation of different images. Take the snapshot of all those images, whatever you considered, and prepare a document, update the document. That is what your assignment is all about. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So let me stop here. Anybody else have any doubts? Please let me know. Otherwise, we'll stop.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, yes.
So could you please give us the due date till tomorrow, sir? Because today only we have understood the whole exercise what you have given us completely. So till
Okay.
tomorrow.
Uh, okay, I will extend it tomorrow, but see, you should not know postpone like this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If at all you had a
Yeah.
doubt, you could have asked me day before today's. Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is last time we are postponing it to not tomorrow, but after that there will be no any you should
Uh-huh.
submit it before the deadline. Okay, because these are all
Yes, sir.
simple things. And it's not a very complex thing. Okay, only thing you have to say,
Okay.
instead of sleeping by night 10 o'clock in the night, you sleep by 11 o'clock. That's all you're supposed to do. Otherwise, everything is self-explanatory. Everything is possible to understand. Okay, there is nothing very great about this. It's all simple mathematics. Okay. Yes. Yeah. For each of the rate, whatever you take, you have to prepare a detailed document now. For each image, different rate. What is input image? What is output image? What is mean square? What is PSNR? Everything has been taken snapshot. Okay, so that you understand. Okay, for which rate, which image is better. Okay, suppose if at all you have an image is having more objects, if your rate is very low, there is a lot of loss in the image. So I want you to take a snapshot and record it. Okay. Yes. Fine then, students, let us stop. Tomorrow we will again discuss. I'll tell you the time when we are going to have the session. But I want you to complete the assignment today and submit it before we take the next class. That is tomorrow. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Yes. Hello? Okay, shall we
Excuse me,
end?
sir.
Yes.
So can you extend till tomorrow so that it will submit the tomorrow, sir? Or
Yeah, we'll do.
time?
I want you to submit tomorrow. No problem. I'll extend it by
Okay.
tomorrow. Okay, I'll extend it tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay then.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.